There we go. All right, let me just see if somebody is trying to get on. Nope. Okay. So welcome everybody. And this is a very informal meeting. So I really welcome, whoever is on now and who is coming on. I welcome you to ask questions and at any time and join in the conversation, because having more of a conversation is actually a lot more fun than just hearing me talk about the topic on hand. And so I do want to preface this by saying in the evening time, I am still having these little coughing fits. And so I have a lozenge in my mouth. I apologize. It's not usually the best thing, but hopefully that's going to keep me from getting into a hacking issue. So we're only here for a half hour. And hopefully this is going to be something that is of, that you'll take something away that is going to help you in moving forward with your wellness plan and your path to wellness. So and you can put any questions if you want in the chat. But as I said, if you want to unmute yourself and ask during the chat, please go ahead and do that. You don't have to type it in. So I wanted to, I'm really excited to do this because I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Just having these conversations around certain topics that are, I think, really important and topics that we all can really relate to. And so the first one is, for the month of June, we're going to be talking about cravings. So I am going to be looking this way, which is one of my screens to my notes. So I hope that's not too distracting for you. So if you're, hang on one sec. The lozenge got in a place where it shouldn't. Okay, so if you're confused about cravings and why they happen, why they are so frustrating, why it can be that you're moving along just fine, and then all of a sudden, wham, you end up getting kind of slammed with this weird out of the blue craving. Know that you're not alone. And it's a very familiar thing, especially if we have some kind of a focus on dieting per se. So for those of you who have been with me for a while, you know that we focus on three main things in the beginning. We focus when we're first looking to heal and get into what we call that healing state. So we're looking at our blood sugar levels. We're looking at our ability for our digestive system to be working really well. So what's our poop doing? And then we're also looking for our sleep. What is our sleep quality? So the two that I'm really going to kind of focus on today, believe it or not, are the blood sugar, number one, but the sleep as well, because that has a lot to do with the hormonal orchestra that kind of plays in our brain and then in our body. And the cravings part of this is connected to that. So when we think about cravings, I'm just kind of going to go through the logistics of it, because that's kind of a little bit of the boring part, but then we'll go through some of the other things that are a little bit more fun. So there's two pieces that connect us to cravings. So as I mentioned, you can feel some of these cravings sometimes coming, and it seems like they're out of the blue. But they're really not. So the way that things work optimally in our body is that there are two hormones that are big players in cravings, or in rather, I should say, hunger and being satisfied of hunger. So the first one is something called ghrelin, and ghrelin is a hormone that is released from our stomach when our stomach gets to a certain point of empty. And that's where kind of the blood sugar has to come in too, because if our blood sugar starts getting low, oftentimes ghrelin is activated and it goes directly to our brain, to a place called the hypothalamus. And when that happens, the hypothalamus indicates to our brain, hey, we're hungry, we need to eat. And so that's when we start looking for food. And the way optimally that it would work is we find our food, we start eating, and we eat to a certain amount of fullness. And usually our fullness is, it's really great if we could just eat until we're like 80% full and then stop. And at that point, the ghrelin levels should stop. So those signals should stop going to the hypothalamus. And instead what happens is there's another hormone that's released. It's called leptin. And that leptin actually comes from our fat cells, from our adipose tissue. And that stops the cravings. It tells our hypothalamus, hey, we're full, we don't need to eat anymore. And so it should stop that whole cycle of looking for food, basically. Because remember, what we're really talking about here is we're talking about survival. All of these systems are set up in order for our body to be able to survive. So cravings are an interesting piece. And again, I'm going to get into that a little bit more, where the fun part comes. But so now you have a little bit of better idea of kind of what happens with these ghrelin levels, hunger, how it signals to the brain, and then how the brain gets another signal from leptin, from our fat cells, that tells us to stop eating. So that's one of the reasons why you can say something to the effect of cravings are temporary. So you may have heard before how people might have said, especially again, kind of when we're talking about diet plans and things like that, they'll tell you, well, if you can just wait 10 to 20 minutes after you eat, those cravings should go away. And that's because if things are working properly from a physiological standpoint, then that whole ghrelin leptin balance should be working properly. And when you're that 80% full, the leptin comes into play, and then it shuts off the hunger mode. And so that usually takes somewhere between 10 and 20 minutes. The other big thing, and this is kind of just an aside, but the other really good thing about just eating to 80% full is that you don't overfill your stomach. And so then your stomach can actually do the proper digestion and things like that it needs to do. And so that then becomes more optimal as far as being able to break down the foods and things like that. And of course, I'm sure that you have done your chewing properly beforehand. So that gives your stomach a little bit of a break and a start to the digestive process the way that we want it to start. So that's number one. But as I said, cravings can be temporary. And so, I talked about the physiological piece of this, but what about if I were to tell you that cravings aren't really real? And you might say, Anka, you flipped your lid, because I know cravings, and cravings are there, and they are absolutely real, and they take over my life, and they take over my entire thought process and all of the things. So how could I say that cravings aren't real? Well, what I mean by that is that they're not real in the sense that you don't need the ice cream or the cookies or the sugar or the starch or the salty stuff. You actually don't need those. That is a process that has you thinking that you need it, but you don't. And so when we come to the emotional part of cravings, this is where the fun begins. It's that emotional part of cravings that connect us to whatever it is that we might be craving at that certain moment in time. And I want you to hold on to this thought because there is another piece to cravings as well. And I'll post some of the things in our chat on Practice Better, in our message board or in our community message board, so that you can actually see them. There's a couple of graphics that I want to post there. But those graphics are going to show you that sometimes there is an imbalance or there is a need for something and you will crave it. So, for example, if you are needing to detoxify, and I'll use my horse as an example, if he needs to detoxify his liver, guess what? He actually goes after dandelions. And he will let some of the grass, the beautiful, easy sugar grass stuff go, and he'll be going for the dandelions. So we're no different. We're mammals just like him. And we'll do the same thing. We will go for salt. We will go for something that we feel we need. Maybe it's a banana, so because we need a little bit more potassium. Or maybe it's something that's a little bit more magnesium or selenium rich, something like that. If we have like a nut craving, especially a Brazilian nut craving, that might be a selenium deficiency. Anyway, so our bodies are pretty darn smart in giving themselves what they need and having a craving for that. But these cravings that aren't real, they're more from the emotional side. And so when we think about that, I'm going to use myself as an example because I have permission from myself to use myself as an example. So I realized I had an eating disorder by how I looked at my cravings and when those cravings came up. And those cravings were mainly around salty, crunchy things or chocolate. Those were those are the two biggies. I could let cakes and muffins and all that stuff go. Ice cream, definitely not a problem. Never have a craving for any of those. But chocolate and salty, crunchy things, love them, especially things like potato chips. So what I realized was that, again, anybody who's been working with me for a while, you understand simply noticing and you understand the whole concept of the gremlin. So what I realized by simply noticing is that when I had a craving come up that seemingly came out of the blue and seemingly was just this huge distraction and definitely a frustration, because then that's where my mind would go, was more around the challenge that I was, the emotional challenge that I was trying to subdue, basically. Time for another lozenge. And I don't have cravings for these lozenges, but I definitely need them today. Because the coughing fits aren't pretty. So anyway, so when what I realized is that if I had a big project, if I had a big thing to do, whether it was for work or whatever else, if there was something bigger coming up in my life, maybe even prepping for vacation, I would do everything that I possibly could from a food-related standpoint, and I would binge eat the very things that I didn't want to be eating. So if there were any chips in the house, if there were any chocolates in the house, anything like that, those would be devoured, and they would be devoured with gusto. And it wasn't until I would fill myself and literally overfill myself with those foods where I could finally kind of sit down and then maybe get started on the task at hand. But most of the times what would happen is I would sweep that task aside and the cycle would repeat itself the next time I wanted to or needed to actually pay attention to that task. So that's one of the emotional triggers that you can have, and it's an example of it that will actually get your cravings to come to light and to even think of them as like a trick to distract you. So if you can, like simply notice around your cravings, what might be happening beforehand that might be causing you to have that specific craving. And 9 times out of 10, if there is some kind of an emotional connection or attachment to it, what you'll notice is that you'll start to see the pattern about how that craving is associated with whatever that task is or whatever that thing is that you are avoiding or dancing around. So any questions on any of that so far? Okay. Not seeing any questions. So the other thing that cravings can be connected to is emotional stress. And it can be connected to emotional stress in regards to like potentially a stressful event or a stressful memory. So again, I'm not going to use myself, but I am going to use somebody who has given me permission to use this example. So let's say you are in a job that you don't enjoy very much. And within that job, you feel you're kind of always waiting for the ball to drop. Maybe you're not treated very well at that job. And so when we have cravings, one of the things that happens is when we feed those cravings, we actually get a dopamine hit, and a serotonin hit, and an endorphin hit. And so when we actually go for that craving, we get that brief little hit that has us feeling good. So all of those are more feel-good hormones. And so if we have some kind of a stressful or an emotional event that we tie to our cravings that we don't even realize might be there, one of the things that happens is by succumbing to the craving, we're actually giving ourselves that dopamine hit. Or I should really say that feel-good chemical hit. So another way to be able to then mitigate that is being able to connect what is that emotional stressor that's causing you that need to get those feel-good chemicals from ingesting foods. And if you can connect that, then what you can do is utilize your tools from the gremlin, from simply noticing, and be able to stop what is going to happen before it actually happens. And so this individual has been able to mitigate the stressors and the emotional abuse, really, in her workplace. And she's been able to set boundaries. She's been able to speak her voice. She's found her voice. She's been able to really do some amazing things in order to be able to mitigate this to the point where having the cravings that she used to have in the work environment, or even before she left for work every day, is no longer even an issue because it doesn't even come up anymore because that trigger isn't there. And in the meantime, what she's done is she's really learned how to set those boundaries, not only in her work life, but in her personal life in many different places, working with her medical community, which is really, really great for her healing, and feeling really empowered by what she's been able to do. So I guess what I kind of want to close with is that as frustrating and as bothersome as cravings can be, I think they can be a really good thing because they can help us to be able to identify, is it a physiological craving? Like, am I eating the right foods? Am I eating enough foods? You know, all of these physiological things that we can look at and we can say, is this a good thing for us? You know, am I doing the right things from a physical standpoint in order to be able to mitigate these cravings? But the other thing that it can help us with is it can help us to grow. It can help us to grow both mentally and emotionally. And so the more tools that we end up really developing, the happier our overall life becomes. And if having a craving is our body's way of being able to kind of tap us on the shoulder and say, hey, there's a little bit of work to do here, either from a mental, emotional, or physical standpoint. And if we can get to the bottom of it, and if we can have support around it, and if we can have a better understanding around why it's happening and how it's happening, and then have resolution for it, for the root cause, well, then we've got the whole shebang. Because at that point, we're able to walk away with more tools in our toolbox to be able to help us from a much more global perspective and empower us in our lives moving forward. So that's what I have about cravings. I kind of just wanted to open the door and talk a little bit about them. I'm going to keep talking about cravings and keep posting things on our message board and practice better. Remember that all of this information is literally in our small community. There's about 15 of us in this community. And it's only going to be shared with us. You don't need to let anybody know who you are. If you want to remain anonymous, you can absolutely do that. Even on the community message board, it will just show your initials that you have, or if you do have a little icon, a picture in your icon. Oh no, I actually shut that off, so it won't show that. So no one will know who you are. You can remain anonymous. If you don't want to remain anonymous, and if you want to join the community and share your name, you can do that too. So it's really up to you, and it's really a personal choice. So that's all I have tonight for cravings. Deb, you're the only one on here, and I don't want to put you under any pressure or anything like that. But if you want to share something, Deb, please go ahead. If you've got a question, you can type it into the chat, or you can unmute and ask the question. But I'll just kind of open it up for Q&A right now. And if there's no questions, then we will go ahead and shut this down, and I will actually be able to go and get some dinner, which I don't actually have a craving for. All right, now I'm just going to give you a little time, Deb, in case you have anything. If you don't have anything, if you can type in the chat that you don't have a question. Oh, I'm slow time. Okay, I'm waiting. I'll wait. No worries. You don't need to be fast. But I hope this was helpful. What would be helpful for me is if you provide some feedback and let me know how helpful or not doing something like this is, because we're only going to grow together. And I know that especially being the first one here, as far as doing this first event, I'm really open to the format and to really have it be a good 30 minutes of time for you. So, helpful. Okay, it won't let you unmute you. Let's see if I can unmute you. Ask to unmute. I don't know if I can. Oh, there you are.
Oh, okay. Yeah, something else popped up, so let me unmute. I forgot what you asked, but yeah, it's still hard to tell, like, what that was helpful, knowing to think about what kind of craving am I having, and I know when it's the triggered one, I know about that, but the other one, I'm not sure how you tell. because sometimes my cravings don't go away in 20 minutes. So I'm wondering maybe that's a sign that it's something that I'm lacking.
It could be. It could very well be. So you're sure it has no emotional tie to it, the one that you can't figure out?
I'm gonna have to think about it more now because I know when the other one crops up, like I'm aware of that, but I'll have to pay more attention.
Yeah, see if you can kind of
something to think. Yeah.
see if you can simply notice around it and see if there's something that you're, that's been kind of unconscious around it. And that's the tricky thing, the sneaky thing about some cravings is that it can be really, really tricky to be able to put your finger on it because a person can get into such a habitual pattern around it that it's really difficult to simply notice even what might be triggering it.
Yeah.
If it's an emotional craving, emotionally driven craving. But if it's not, what I would say is keep an eye out for the graphics that I'm going to put on the message board.
Oh, okay.
Because some of those graphics are kind of neat. They literally have, if you have a craving for salt, then you might want to eat such and such. If you have a craving, so it does give you some. It does give you some indicators as to what might be missing in your diet, and then you can start playing with that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So if you have a salty craving, for example, you can start to see, does then eating something that is salty satiate that craving? Or like in my case, I always thought mine was a deficiency in something, but then I did tie it to it's an emotional trigger. And so even when I ate salty and crunchy, which was my thing, it didn't matter how much salty and crunchy I ate. And in fact, I overate it. It wouldn't satiate the craving. What would satiate the craving is avoiding the thing that I was avoiding.
Yeah.
So that was a very interesting dynamic, and it was sneaky.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm going to really be tuned into that. This
Okay.
was really good. It was very helpful. And I'm the only one here.
You're the only one here so far, and I'm not surprised because when we start a movement, there's got to be one person dancing before another person joins in, and then the next person, and then the next person. But it's usually not until 3 or 4 people are dancing without abandon, or with abandon, without abandon, with abandon, where then the other people feel safe enough to come into the community and do the same. So thank you for being here.
I think maybe a lot of times too, people just forget it's a new routine or something. Because that's happened to me before, where I wanted to do something and then it just, got distracted.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other big thing is, I don't know if this time is a good time for people. We'll kind of play with the time. I don't know if doing it during the day, like at noontime, is better for people, like a lunch and learn kind of deal for the people who are working. But yeah, I agree with you, and based on the weather, if the weather is nice, which it is up here, I know I wouldn't want to be on a Zoom. I'd want to be outside playing. So there's that piece too. Yeah, no. So I know it's not just needing to get the movement started, but that's oftentimes something, with this that kind of it is easier once there's several people on. So we'll see, because I like I said, I'm recording this, and I'm going to share the recording in Practice Better on the message board, and maybe we'll have more people for the next one. So keep an eye out for that. And I think the next one is the 15th, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, and then you'll just let us know what time, or are you gonna keep it at this time? 'Cause I'll put it in my
Right
calendar.
now it's at 7 o'clock. So it's June the 15th, 7 o'clock again, Central Time.
Okay,
And then we'll kind of see, I was going to see, what we would do in July based on, as far as time is concerned, based on the feedback I get from people.
okay.
Wonderful. All right. Yay. And no coughing fit. Woohoo!
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
That's great.
So for your late for dinner.
Well, yeah. Well, I had an appointment before this, so otherwise I would have eaten dinner beforehand, but yeah, now it's time for dinner for sure. All right, Ms. Deb, have a wonderful evening. We will talk with you soon.
Okay, thanks, Anka. You too.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.